Have you ever stopped and wondered how people survived, really thrived, before every kitchen had a refrigerator? For, thousands of years, preserving meat wasn't just a cool hobby, it was an absolutely essential skill for survival. Today, we're going to pull back the curtain on that lost art and break down the simple science behind keeping food not just safe, but delicious for months or even years.
So let's take a quick peek at the old-school toolkit. We're going to be digging into the classics. We've got curing, smoking, drying, and of course pressure canning. Now each one of these methods is a little different, but as you'll see, they all use the same really elegant science to do one thing: stop spoilage right in its tracks.
And look, this is about way more than just nostalgia or, some cool project for your homestead. Really understanding these methods is about getting back a crucial survival skill. It's one that's rooted in straightforward, elegant science that has just plain worked for centuries.
At its very core, every single method of meat preservation is a battle. Yep, it's a fight against this invisible army of microorganisms, bacteria, yeasts, and molds that are always trying to break down our food. And to win this fight, you've got to know your enemy.
Well, it turns out our invisible enemies are actually kind of picky. They need 4 very specific things to really get going. First, moisture, because all life needs water. Then oxygen, because a lot of them need to breathe, just like we do. They also like a comfortable, neutral pH, and finally, just the right temperature. So what's the secret to preservation? You just starve them of one of these things, and the battle is pretty much won.
Okay, you need to remember this range: 40 to 140 degrees Fahrenheit. This is the danger zone. It's like the perfect tropical vacation for harmful bacteria. Every single preservation method we're going to talk about is really just a clever way to keep meat from hanging out in this zone.
And this right here, this is the playbook. It's so simple. For every single thing bacteria need, we have a direct countermove. To fight off moisture, bam, we use drying and salting. To get rid of oxygen, we can pack things in fat. To mess with the pH, we use pickling. It's just a brilliant, simple system of attack and counterattack.
All right, so we've pretty much covered the why. Now let's move on to the what. Think of this next part as your own personal playbook, kind of like a menu of options that'll help you pick the perfect technique for whatever you're trying to do.
So here's a quick side-by-side. You can see the trade-offs, right? Drying is pretty easy, and it gives you jerky that's going to last for a few months. But if you're talking about real long-term storage, like years, well, pressure canning is the undisputed champion, even if it does take a bit more skill.
So, let's get practical. Enough theory. We're about to dive deep into the how for 3 of the most essential methods you can master: curing, drying, and, of course, pressure canning.
First up, curing. Now, sure, you could just bury a piece of meat in a box of salt like they did in the old days, but the modern, much more precise way to do it is called equilibrium curing. Don't let the name scare you. It's all just simple math. You calculate the exact percentage of salt and cure you need based on how much the meat weighs. This gives you total control and perfect, consistent results every single time.
And when I say the math is simple, I mean it's dead simple. Let's say you're making bacon. You weigh your pork belly. Then you just apply the standard percentages: 2.5% for salt, 1% for sugar just to balance the flavor, and then a totally non-negotiable 0.25% for Prague Powder number 1 for safety. You mix it up, rub it on, seal it, and let it cure. It's honestly that straightforward. Okay, let's be crystal clear about curing salts. They are not optional. This is your number 1 defense against the deadly toxin that causes botulism. So you're going to use Prague Powder number 1 for short cures that you're going to cook later, like bacon. But for long-aged meats that won't be cooked, like prosciutto, you must use Prague Powder number 2. It's designed for that extended protection. All right, next up is drying, which is how we get jerky. The secret to great jerky really starts with your knife. You have to use lean meat, and I mean you have to trim off every last visible speck of fat. Why? Because fat doesn't dry, it just goes rancid. How you slice it makes a difference too. Slice with the grain for that classic chewy jerky, or go against the grain for a much more tender bite.
So here's a really key science concept for you. When we make jerky, we aren't just removing water. We're actually lowering its activity. This is a measurement of how much water is actually available for microbes to use. Think of it like this. The water's still there, but by using salt and drying, we've locked it up so it's useless to them. Getting that activity level below 0.85 is the real goal for making something truly shelf-stable.
And now, for the gold standard.
the heavyweight champion of long-term preservation, pressure canning. And let me be perfectly clear. This is the only method you can do at home that is proven to make low-acid foods like meat shelf-stable. This is completely, totally different from the water bath canning you might use for making pickles or jam.
So what's the secret? It all comes down to one magic number, 240 degrees Fahrenheit. That's the temperature a pressure canner can reach, which is way hotter than boiling water at 212. And it's this super intense heat that you need to destroy the incredibly tough spores that cause botulism, spores that can easily survive just being boiled.
Now, when you're ready to can, you've basically got two choices. You can raw pack, which is definitely faster, you just put raw meat in the jars, or you can hot pack, where you cook the meat first. Hot packing usually means less shrinkage inside the jar, and this is crucial. It lets you drain off all that excess fat from things like ground beef, which helps you get a perfect, safe seal.
With pressure canning, following the procedure is everything. I mean, everything. These steps are completely non-negotiable. You have to leave exactly 1 inch of headspace. You have to wipe the rims of the jars clean. You have to vent that canner for a full 10 minutes before you bring it up to pressure. And maybe most important of all, you let it depressurize all by itself. Never ever rush this step.
Okay, we've covered a ton of ground, from the deep science of spoilage all the way to the practical steps of canning. So let's bring it all home with a final checklist of the most important, the most unbreakable safety rules, no matter which method you end up choosing.
Just think of this as your pre-flight checklist. Always start with fresh, cold meat. Always measure your cures with a scale, not measuring spoons. Only use tested, science-backed recipes from sources you trust. Check every single seal on every single jar. And store everything in a cool, dark place. These rules, right here, are your foundation for being safe.
And seriously, if you only take away one single rule from this entire explainer, please let it be this one. Your senses are your best guide. If something looks off, smells off, or feels off, there's no debate. When in doubt, you throw it out. The risk is never, ever worth it.
So, now you know. These ancient techniques aren't magic, they're just applied science. They're a direct, incredibly practical way to take some real control over your own food security. So the only question left is, which one of these timeless skills are you going to choose to revive?